This is the final chance for you. Choose either to live with my parents or get a divorce. You've been complaining for too long. But make your decision before I get back from my business trip. Julia.
My husband, Ryan, who is usually demanding, called me with an even more demanding attitude than usual. He was presenting me with a terrible choice, but it didn't faze me at all. Because Ryan doesn't know anything. Can we talk about this later? I've already moved out. Come home soon.
What? Have you finally realized your place? For someone as slow as you, that's impressive. But you might be lying. Send me a picture of the room, and I'll check.
You don't need to doubt me. Fine, I'll send it right away. As told, I sent a picture of the room I was in. Ryan immediately called back, shouting at the top of his lungs.
Julia, you really tried to deceive me, didn't you? Where is this? It's not our new place. You've got guts to pull this on me. Don't think you'll get away with this.
I'm not deceiving you. I'm definitely in our new place. I'm just unpacking at your mistress's house. I replied in a calm voice, and Ryan suddenly went silent. He's probably looking over the photo again on the other end of the line right now. Ryan seemed to think his affair was still a secret. How foolish. I've known everything for a long time. I've put up with his arrogance, but I can't endure it anymore. As I unpack, my patience unravels. It's time for payback. You better be prepared. After a moment of silence, Ryan, seemingly gathering his thoughts, suddenly broke the quiet with laughter.
What nonsense are you spouting? A mistress? Don't be ridiculous. I would never do something so dishonorable while married. You've been watching too many soap operas. Don't let it go to your head. A wife's place is to follow her husband. Now, go to the correct house and unpack. I'll overlook this mistake just once. Got it?
It seemed like Ryan was going to deny everything as expected. He was about to abruptly hang up the call, but then he hesitated when he heard a faint male voice near me. His previously cheerful tone instantly changed. With a heavy, menacing voice, he started to threaten me.
Hey, whose voice was that? I definitely heard a man's voice. You just accused me of cheating. But are you the one having an affair? A wife cheating on her husband is utterly disgraceful.
It's not like that. You're misunderstanding, and I know you won't believe me if I just say it, so I'll switch to a video call. As soon as I switched to a video call, Ryan's eyes widened in shock. And for good reason. There was indeed a man beside me. But that man was actually Ryan's boss, Michael. Ryan had just accused his own boss of being my lover.
Why is Michael with you, Julia? No, more importantly, why are you in that house? That's because
it's your mistress's house, right? I know, and so does Michael. I've been talking to him about you all this time. I've told him everything, how you've always thrown harsh words at me, threatened me with divorce to get your way. So there's no need for any more excuses. He's been listening to our entire conversation from the start. Ryan was utterly speechless. He always acted tough with me, but he was the type to crumble before anyone in a higher position. He can't stand up to anyone in a higher position than him. Ryan managed to squeeze out a thin voice through his trembling lips.
Look, I'm sorry for everything, but I'm on a business trip right now and not in the right state to talk about this calmly. Let's discuss it properly when I get back. For now, I need to get back to work.
He tried to end the call again, but I stopped him. I couldn't let him leave just yet. After all, he hadn't admitted to anything about his affair. I wasn't going to let him lie his way out of this. I needed to press him just a bit further. Wait, Ryan, there's something I need you to check right now. It's really important, so please do it immediately. With that, I sent a few images to Ryan's phone. They were photos of him on vacation with a young woman. Seeing them, Ryan recoiled from the screen and disappeared from view. It seemed he was so shocked that he fell off his chair. I tried my best to suppress my laughter, knowing it would only make him angrier, but Michael just burst out laughing. His laughter was making it hard for me to keep my composure.
How did you get those photos? You were supposed to be preparing for the move.
I didn't just have the photos. The young woman's name is Emily. She's the owner of the house we're in right now. And you weren't on a business trip today, were you? You were spending time with Emily, weren't you?
No, I really was on a business trip. Stop making baseless accusations. Michael is listening too. This could affect my career.
Don't worry, your true nature has already been revealed. And just in case you forgot, I used to work at the same company as you, remember? So I'm still in touch with our old colleagues. It seems like the rumors about you two have been around for a while. They reached my ears after all. I could hear Ryan groaning on the other end of the line. He thought I hadn't discovered anything. He probably believed he had hidden it perfectly at work, too. But it's always the people involved who are the last to know. Even if you think you're being careful, small gestures or words can raise suspicion. Everyone is always on high alert and focused on their work, so it's not easy to deceive them. And ever since you started threatening me with divorce, your business trips suddenly increased. Even someone oblivious would notice if you were hardly ever home. I started getting suspicious, too, so I decided to follow you and monitor your actions. Evidence is crucial in situations like this. And guess what? Bingo. It turns out your so-called business trips were just a cover for your secret meetings.
You don't think you can get away with secretly tailing me? How dare you, as my wife, go against me and do something so elaborate? You should have stayed quiet at home. Don't you know that a wife is supposed to respect her husband?
Instead of reflecting on his actions, Ryan lashed out at me in anger. In a way, I expected this, but hearing his accusations brought back memories of the painful days, tightening my stomach. But then I remembered. I'm not alone anymore.
How dare you act so high and mighty after everything you've done? If you had treated Julia with kindness and sincerity from the start, this wouldn't have happened. There's a saying, what goes around comes around. You committed the grave sin of cheating and betrayed your wife. Of course, she would investigate your behavior.
Michael's powerful words nearly brought tears to my eyes. But this was just the beginning of my revenge. I couldn't let myself cry now. As I wiped away the tears that had formed at the corners of my eyes, Ryan remained silent, biting his lower lip. It seems that hearing these words from his direct superior really hit home. Michael, clearly fed up with Ryan's attitude, turned red with anger and delivered a final blow.
Cut your little affair short and get back here right now.
Yes, sir.
After hearing Ryan's pitiful response, Michael ended the call.
Sorry for handling your phone so roughly.
Michael handed the phone back to me, looking away, as if he suddenly realized what he had done after pressing the end button with a huff. I couldn't help but laugh at his change in attitude. I was truly grateful that Michael was on my side. An hour after the call ended, Ryan returned home with Emily. Both of them were looking down, unable to lift their heads. I wondered if their necks were getting sore. Ryan was clearly anxious, glancing around nervously and biting his nails. As for Emily, she looked like a critically ill patient. Her face was pale, lips were turning purple, and she was completely speechless. In front of them stood Michael, arms crossed, looking every bit as imposing as ever. He used to play rugby, and even though he's retired now, his muscular build remains impressive. He once laughed and said, "Working out is pretty pointless now, but today, it's doing a great job of intimidating the two of them." I was sitting next to him, but I felt like his overwhelming presence was making it hard for me to assert my own. Still, thanks to Michael, things were likely to go smoothly from here on, so I decided to take a step back for now.
So, fair to explain what's going on. You lied about being on a business trip just to go on an affair, using work as an excuse to deceive your wife. Are you mocking all of us who work hard every day?
No, I never meant to disrespect anyone. It's just, I had reached my limit.
Ryan, usually so domineering, seemed like a different person. He has no spirit left in him now, moving like a puppet being directed by someone else. I stared intently at Ryan, because I'm curious to see how he's going to explain himself.
I was fortunate to join a major company and achieve results. It wasn't arrogance, I was contributing as a valuable asset from a young age. But it wasn't all good. While Michael treated me fairly, I was envied and harassed by other supervisors and colleagues. Eventually, I became so overwhelmed that I started threatening my wife at home to keep myself together. I knew it was wrong, but I was mentally pushed to the edge.
Ryan's eyes welled up with tears. Michael's brow furrowed deeply, while Emily remained as silent as ever. It seemed everyone was listening intently to Ryan's story.
During that time, I met Emily, and she saved me. Her smile was like a ray of sunshine. Every word she said nourished my soul. I knew it was wrong, but I felt like Emily was the only one who could make me happy. Our relationship started gradually, but I never intended to keep things ambiguous forever. Although this isn't how I plan to confess, I'm going to divorce Julia and marry Emily.
With that, Ryan raised his head and looked Michael straight in the eye. There was a strong determination shining in his eyes, which made his story seem more credible. Michael rubbed his forehead with his hand and let out a sigh.
I understand that you had your reasons, but in the end, you were only thinking about yourself. Marriage and divorce might just be a matter of paperwork, but there's another person involved. Maybe Emily saved you, but what about Julia? All she's been given is despair. You were hurt by the way others treated you, right? Even though her pain is different from yours. How could you not think about the hurt she's suffered from your betrayal? As a fellow working adult, I sympathize with your situation, but that doesn't make it okay to cheat. You're in the wrong.
After hearing these harsh words, the determined look in Ryan's eyes began to fade. You probably thought that his explanation would be enough to convince us. But no matter how he tries to dress it up, cheating is still cheating. That doesn't make it okay. I wonder how he couldn't realize such a simple truth, but perhaps it's because people who commit these acts blind themselves to the inconvenient facts, making it easier for them to commit their sins. To make Ryan fully grasp the gravity of the situation, I decided to reveal a certain fact. Ryan, what you're saying is completely off base. Remarriage is only acceptable when both parties are free to do so.
That's why I said I'm divorcing you. Are you even listening? Or is your hearing clogged?
No, I'm saying that Emily also needs to be free, meaning she has to be single and not involved with anyone else. But she's dating Michael.
Huh.
Ryan's eyes widened in literal shock. His mouth hung open, completely frozen like a statue. Meanwhile, Emily, who was already pale, began to tremble even more. You see, the reason she was so frightened wasn't because I, Ryan's wife, was present. It was because she was panicking over the fact that Michael, her boyfriend, had found out about her affair. Michael continued to stare at Emily without saying a word. His expression remained stern. But of course, Ryan, who had no idea about any of this, refused to believe my words and turned directly to Emily for an answer.
What the heck is Julia talking about? Emily is my girlfriend, and mine alone. She's just jealous of you, right? You always told me, didn't you, that you loved me more than anyone else in the world?
Ryan spoke to her with an exaggeratedly cheerful tone, but Emily didn't respond. She just kept looking down further, probably staring only at her feet by now. Ryan, starting to feel uneasy, lost the smile on his face and grabbed Emily by the shoulders, shaking her.
Hey, Emily. Why aren't you saying anything? There's no need to think about it so much. You just have to say it's not true.
I'm sorry.
Emily's loud apology drowned out Ryan's words as she broke free from his grip and collapsed onto the floor. Ryan was left with his mouth hanging open again. Emily, with her forehead pressed against the floor, began to speak in a trembling voice.
I've always liked you, Ryan. You're handsome, successful, and I admired you so much. But because you were so wonderful, I thought you'd never notice someone like me, so I couldn't take the first step. Then you married Julia. I had to give up on you. So I started dating Michael to forget about you. And it made me happy. Michael treated me with such care.
For a brief moment, Michael's stern expression softened. Seeing that, I realized he truly loved Emily. That's why I could so clearly feel his pain in this moment, and I found myself clutching my chest. Why is it that ordinary, decent people always end up suffering? Even though he's filled with anger and sadness right now, I sincerely hope that one day he finds happiness. Emily, however, paid no attention to the subtle emotions between us and continued her monologue.
But after a while, Ryan, who was exhausted, approached me. I was so happy. A love I had given up on had somehow blossomed without me knowing. I knew it was wrong, that it was a betrayal of Michael. But the flames of my rekindled love didn't die down. Instead, they grew stronger, and I ended up making the mistake of cheating. I couldn't stop my feelings. I'm truly sorry.
Her voice faded, becoming broken and hoarse at the end. Drops of water fell onto the floor, creating small stains. Ryan's eyebrows furrowed deeply, and his face twisted with emotion. His lips quivered, forming a tight line as if he was struggling to hold back his frustration. But he didn't say anything. His tear-filled eyes were fixed on Emily, unable to find the words to respond to her tearful apology. Michael seemed to be feeling something similar. The deep lines on his forehead remained, but his gaze had grown heavy with sorrow. He had been betrayed by the person he loved, yet he, too, was captivated by her tears. She's quite the actress. This woman, Emily. I couldn't help it. I started laughing, clutching my stomach. Ryan, Emily, and Michael all turned to me with puzzled expressions. Oh, I'm sorry for laughing in the middle of this tearful apology. It's just that Emily's performance was so convincing that I couldn't help but be impressed rather than angry.
What performance?
Julia, what do you mean by that?
Both Ryan and Michael leaned forward, eager to hear my explanation. Emily, on the other hand, recoiled in fear, her face showing disbelief. Yes, that's the look I wanted to see. With a smirk, I pulled out a stack of photos from my bag and tossed them forcefully at Emily. She instinctively turned her face away, trying to shield herself from the photos, but the moment she picked one up, she was rendered speechless. Seeing her reaction, Ryan hurriedly checked the photos as well, and in his shock, let out a loud, confused shout.
What the f*** are these men? They look like gangsters. Why is Emily surrounded by gangsters?
And she's handing them money. She doesn't look like she's being threatened. She almost looks happy to give it to them.
No, don't look.
Emily screamed as she tried to snatch the photos from Ryan and Michael, scrambling to gather every last one that had scattered on the floor. But I was ready with more photos in hand. Don't worry, I made plenty of copies, so feel free to collect them all.
You.
Emily's face twisted with anger as she lunged at me, but Michael quickly restrained her. As expected of a former rugby player, he's skilled at holding people down. Emily, you're so hasty. There's no need to rush. I'm going to explain everything to you. Why you were giving money to the gangsters.
Shut up. Do you even know what's going to happen later?
Emily tried to scream with a terrifying expression, but this time Ryan silenced her by covering her mouth. As expected of a boss and his subordinate. It was an impressive team effort. It seems both of them are eager to know the truth, and I'm more than happy to satisfy their curiosity. Emily was paying those gangsters to threaten Ryan's superiors and colleagues. That's why they had no choice but to harass Ryan. After all, who wouldn't be scared of gangsters? In other words, the reason Ryan was mentally cornered was because of Emily. She was pulling strings behind the scenes to get her hands on you. Ryan looked like he had been struck in the head, his shocked face going pale as he almost collapsed. He barely managed to catch himself by placing his hands on the floor. But it seemed that while his body could hold up, his mind couldn't. His breathing became shallow and rapid. Desperate to defend himself, Ryan tried to deny what I said.
It's a lie, right? Julia has to be wrong. This can't be true. I always thought Emily was the one who saved me. Hey, Emily, say it's not true. Deny it, please.
He looked at Emily with pleading eyes, but she just averted her gaze and said nothing. I faced Ryan with a firm stance and delivered the harsh reality. You were just deceived. Everything was under Emily's control, so there's no way you can remarry. Now that you know all your suffering was caused by her, can you still promise to love her the same as before? Ryan finally lost the strength to support even his own body and collapsed to the floor. Tears flowed endlessly from his eyes, which had lost their light. But I don't feel any sympathy. Ryan certainly suffered, but so did I. There's no way this evens things out. Ryan, I'll grant your wish and divorce you. And you better be ready to pay the alimony. Ryan said nothing, his vacant eyes blinking repeatedly. Once her mouth was no longer covered, Emily, who had remained silent until now, suddenly burst into loud laughter.
Well, don't. I thought you were just a plain, unremarkable woman, but to think you'd go this far. But don't think you've won. A woman like you, Julia, can never beat someone as young and attractive as me. You're so full of yourself. I'm the one who truly deserves to be Ryan's wife. You, a stay-at-home wife who quit her job, have no value. You're nothing more than a housekeeper.
It's true that I'm a stay-at-home wife now, just as you said, but that's because of Ryan and his parents. After we got married, I lost my parents a few years later. With no one to support me, his parents' treatment of me grew harsher. They had old-fashioned views, believing that it was only natural for a wife to be a homemaker. Ryan sided with them, leaving me completely isolated and mentally exhausted. So I had no choice but to quit my job. And by then, Ryan was completely absorbed in you. That's why he tried to force me to live with them, thinking it would push me to ask for a divorce. But things didn't work out as planned, did they? Ryan claimed that he started mistreating me because of the harassment from his colleagues, but that had nothing to do with it. He threatened me because he wanted to divorce me and marry Emily. That's all there was to it. In the end, both Ryan and Emily were only concerned with their own well-being. They forgot to consider others, and now they're paying the price for it.
So, everything Ryan just said with that serious face was a complete lie. How much do you two need to mock us to be satisfied? How many times have I been betrayed today? Enough is enough. This is your final, real warning. Take responsibility for the wrongs you've done and change your ways. If you don't, your lives will be over. Don't think you can keep living selfishly forever.
Despite Michael's stern and serious words, Emily didn't change her smug expression one bit. After slipping out of Michael's grasp, she adjusted her clothes and brushed off the spots where he had touched her, as if she were wiping away dust. As if she were brushing off dirt.
Honestly, Michael, you're so serious and stubborn. That's why you're so boring and lack excitement. That's why women leave you. If you really care, you should put in the effort to keep them interested, like I do. Now, come on, Ryan. Let's go off to our own world.
With that, Emily forced Ryan to stand and they left together. The room suddenly fell into an awkward silence. Michael turned back to me with a stiff movement and apologized deeply.
I'm deeply sorry for the trouble my girlfriend has caused. I'll make sure she pays for her crimes.
Please raise your head. You've been such a strong ally for me, Michael. I'm truly grateful. And you don't need to feel responsible. I've already taken care of everything. They're headed straight for hell. I gave a warm smile. A few days later, I was feeling restless on a rainy morning when my phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed that it was Ryan, my ex-husband. I smirked as I answered. Hello?
Help me. I'm in big trouble. I got fired from my job. They're even suing me for damages. I have no money left. I don't know what to do anymore.
His voice trailed off into sobs, making it hard to understand the last part. But one thing was clear. Ryan was in deep misery. Oh, how satisfying this is. I couldn't help but look up at the sky, clutching my phone tightly. I must push him further into the abyss. Ryan, I know exactly what's going on with you, even better than you do. You see, I still have connections at your workplace. I knew about your affair from the start. But that's not all I found out. I also learned that you were embezzling company funds. You know, you can't get away with doing wrong in this world. So, I asked my contacts to report you. That's why all your dirty deeds were exposed, and now you're in this mess. Understand?
No way. It was all because of you, Julia. Why would you do something so cruel? I knew it was wrong to take money from the company, but I had no choice. At that time, someone approached me with an investment opportunity, and I took it. Looking back, it was obviously a shady deal, but I didn't realize it at the time and ended up losing a lot of money and getting into debt. I had to repay it quickly, or the interest would have piled up, so I had no choice but to use the company's money. You understand how hard it was for me, don't you?
Hearing the desperation in his voice, I couldn't help but laugh. Even when we were married, our hearts were never truly in sync, and now, as strangers, what could he possibly expect from me? I didn't owe him anything, and I certainly didn't have to listen to his pleas. To push Ryan further into despair, I revealed the real secret. The person who approached you with that shady investment is actually connected to Emily. I investigated not only your affair, but also Emily's background when I hired a private investigator. And guess what? I found something interesting. Her claim of loving you was a complete lie. She got close to you just to take your money. So the money you lost in that investment is now in Emily's hands.
No, that can't be true. You just don't know how kind Emily was to me, how she comforted me, she saved me. Don't be jealous now that I'm divorcing you.
Then let me ask you, where is Emily now? She left without telling you anything, right? Of course she did. She always planned to disappear as soon as she got the money.
No.
Ryan finally broke down and started sobbing loudly on the other end of the phone. Now, he truly understood the pain of being betrayed by someone he trusted. Maybe he's become a little more human. But after calming down from his bout of crying, Ryan made a bizarre suggestion.
I realize now that you were the only one for me, Julia. Let's start over. We can put everything behind us and get back to how things were. We can overcome this together.
Don't be ridiculous. It's too late for that. Trying to appeal to my emotions won't work. I will never get back together with you. You're just trying to use me again, and nothing will change. As Michael said, take responsibility for what you've done and change your ways. If you don't, your life is over. Isn't that exactly what's happening? You're just going to keep repeating the same mistakes. Silence fell between us again. It seemed like my words had finally gotten through to him. At least enough to make him think. If we could have reached this understanding earlier, Perhaps our futures could have been different. But it's far too late now.
I wish I had been kinder to you from the start. I'm sorry for everything I put you through.
It's way too late for that, but it's better to hear an apology than not. Live the rest of your life regretting it. I hung up the phone. That was the last conversation I ever had with Ryan. By the time I looked outside, the rain had stopped and a beautiful rainbow stretched across the sky. After that, rumors of Ryan's embezzlement spread throughout the industry, and he couldn't find a new job. He's now living alone in a small apartment, barely getting by with day labor jobs. As for his parents, who had caused so much trouble by insisting on living with us, they quickly ran into financial difficulties, having relied entirely on Ryan. They lost their house and moved into Ryan's cramped apartment, where the three of them now live in constant bickering and poverty. Emily, on the other hand, was arrested after her misdeeds were exposed. The colleagues and superiors she had blackmailed with the help of gangsters filed charges against her. She had a terrible habit of wasting money, which left her in massive debt, much like Ryan. She committed her crimes to pay off those debts. Whatever the reason, she deceived people and broke the law, so it's only right she faces the consequences. As for me, after Ryan was out of my life, I received an offer to return to my previous job, which left me unsure about my next step. At that time, I heard that one of Michael's friends had started his own company and was looking for people to join him. Starting fresh with a new company seemed like the perfect way to restart my life. So I decided to embrace this new path and move forward,